Okay, there we go. And we're back. Is everyone back? Some of us were never here. Okay, here we go. So, refills, we ready? All right, so now we're gonna get to some specific content-based strategies. First, a lot of these are vocab driven. So in your mind, think of a unit or some vocab that you have. And then, hang on, because I got like 16 different strategies and 33 minutes. That's 2 minutes of strategy. You guys ready? It's gonna be tough. So number one, flashcards. Yes, groundbreaking, 21st century, revolutionary flashcards, index cards, 3x5, that's it, right? You can cut them out of paper, whatever you want. Do flashcards. Why? Because over and over again, everyone keeps looking at it and it just works. It works all the time if it's done right. You can do electronic flashcards if you want. So one year I used Google Slides and every slide was a flashcard for them. You could do Quizlet or any of those other applications if you want. But honestly, I would stick to the 3x5 cards. Even if we're remote learning this fall, I'm still gonna stick to 3x5 cards. And the reason for it is, I give students a grade for it, but they can record a 15-second video of them just flipping through the cards, right? So like you don't have to worry too much about the completion of these assignments for it to work. But also think about it in terms of the big picture. If a student has a deck of flashcards, it's so much more tangible. Think in your mind how many files you have of garbage electronically right now, right? Are they important? Of course they're important, but how can they all be important? And then think about the one piece of paper that's sitting on your desk. What takes priority and importance? That tangible thing that's in front of you. So use actual flashcards. Now, one side, I have them do the term itself, and I have them sketch or do a brief little visual representation. That's up to them. On the other side, there's three things, and these three things is part of something called Flashcard Plus method, but these three things are important. They have the textbook definition that's written verbatim, and then secondly, they have the definition in the student's own words with as few of the words from the textbook definition as possible. And then the third thing is a student-driven example or examples or image if you want to add to the visual element of it itself. So the examples are really important, and they should be examples that can't be found in the text. So if they have those three things on the back of the card, they're going to be in good shape. Now, the process of using flashcards, this goes back to one of those things where if you're going to believe in this process, you have to use the process itself. And so what that looks like is students actually sit down and they look at the term, and if they can define it and identify an example, they got it. They put it in this pile, and if they can't, they put it in this pile. And then they go through the whole stack and they sort them. Then they go back through this stack until they get them all in the pile they know, and it's this big. If they do that at least 3 times prior to a unit assessment, the average test score, you know, for psychology students on a campus somewhere where they wrote a study, increased by 10% on the summative assessment. That's it. Like maybe that's all I'm good for, is making kids do flashcards. Who knows? But the results work. In study after study, it works. And then a year from now, in February, they have a stack of 200 flashcards, and they have ownership over it, and they take pride of it, and it's awesome. And then you can have all sorts of flashcard-based games, because everybody loves games, because recall and recitation leads to better learning. So here's some fun games you can play. The first one is Taboo. Taboo is a great critical thinking game. If you've played Taboo before, it's easy, and this is pretty much the same. All you're gonna do is the student's gonna take a flashcard, and then they're gonna take a sticky note, and on the sticky note, they're gonna write 4 or 5 words on the sticky note that the other student can't say when they try to give the clue. Yes, these are personalized sticky notes. If you would like the template for that, where you put your Bitmoji on your flash or your Post-it note, that's available. That's going to cost you though. That one's not free. So anyway, and then for Taboo, you have in teams. Now this engages 2 things. I get my stack of index cards, and now I have to describe that term without using those 5 words that are associated for my teammate to guess what that term is. That's a difficult thing to do. Think about how many different choices I'm making in reference to that term to get my partner to guess that term. Just play Taboo with your friends via doesn't work via Zoom. Shucks. So then the second piece is actually thinking about the 5 words that are going to be the taboo words for the term itself. Because those 5 words, you're now thinking about the 5 words most closely associated with it. So it activates things on 2 different levels. So Taboo is a great game. Inevitably, when we play board game flashcard review in class, the kids just do the heads up game where like they put the flashcard on their forehead. You guys know that game? And then they have to guess what's up there and other kids say things. I just ignore it, whatever, it's fine. Clationary's fun. They play charades with the terms. Twister works, but we don't have time for that, so we'll have to talk about that later. And then there's a list of like 12 different other games you can play with them. They're all based on board games and different things. All right, so that's flashcard review. Next, we have this ranked hierarchy called pyramids. Pyramids are great. And this is a really simple, easy activity. You can use this to debrief a chapter. We are going to do this in breakouts, but I'll give you the example and then challenge somebody to come up with a list. But there's a pyramid. You have your 10 words, 12 words, 6 words, 4 words, however many you want. And then at the top, it doesn't matter. The top, the word at the top, the wind's just going to erode that thing, right? In like 500 years. So the most important term for whatever that larger concept is the foundation. That's at the bottom. That's going to last, right? You can't have this concept without that foundation, just like you can't have a pyramid without the first layer. A pyramid without the top half, it'd still be a pyramid, right? Yeah, in a way, wouldn't it? Okay, well, no one's talking but me, so I guess I'm just gonna deal with it. So let's practice. You making a decision about the importance of something, right? That's what this is engaging in. So let's take a look. Now, I had to text somebody because I don't engage in this sort of debauchery called fly fishing, but here are 10 fly fishing terms. If you don't like the fly fishing example, you can use this driving across the country example right below that. So here are 10 terms. Which one of these terms is the least important thing for fly fishing? Which one? Someone chime in. You're going to go to the river. You don't need this. You can survive without it. What is it? You got to choose one. I'm going to go with tippet because it seems like a made up word. So that's not even real. Is it? Is that a thing?
You need your tippet because it's so thin and then the fly won't see it. So if you leave your tippet off, you're in big trouble.
Okay, well, I'm just making sure I have like shoes, but those aren't even on here. So I'm not a fly fisher person, so I have no idea. So which one of these things is at the bottom? What's the foundation to be able to be successfully fly fishing? What's at the bottom? Someone give me something. You can't survive fly fishing without it.
I would say you don't need your floatant. You
so
get away with it.
So that's going at the top. All right, Daisy did the easy work for it. I don't know what it is, but it's going at the top. What's at the bottom? What's the foundation to fly fishing? Which one of these things is it?
You have to have the rod.
You have to have the rod. Okay, who disagrees with the rod argument? Because a rod is pointless without the line that goes on the rod. I mean, if you have a string, you might be able to catch a fish. If you have a rod with no string, you're just poking at things, right?
You can just throw a fly out without a string and watch the fish grab the fly and go under.
Yeah, so you got to have the string, right?
Yeah, because otherwise then it goes away with the fly in its mouth and that's sad.
Can you fish without the fly? I think you guys get the point. Who gets the point? You get the point? All right. Well, think how hard that's going to be, right? I mean, like you're making these decisions about the ranked order of things. That's really what critical thinking is. And you're going to know so much more about each one of those terms at the end of it, because now I still don't know what a tippet is, but you know, you get the idea. We're almost there. Okay, so that's pyramids. So these guys, right, these pyramid sort of things, this is an evaluation of terms in relation to one another, right, obviously. The next one that we have is pretty similar to that. It's basically a bracket of things. We usually do this one in March, right, hence March Madness, which for those of you who don't know is a way for the NCAA to make exorbitant amount of money off of amateur athletes by forcing them to participate for at least 1 year in their monopoly. but whatever. So March Madness is basically where you set a bracket itself, and the bracket is identifying the relative importance. And so you're gonna have these little matchups over here. And so back to our fly fishing example, over here we have tippet, made up word, versus real word. And then you decide which one of these things is more important to the other. Is it tippet or real? Well, let's just say real because it's not made up. So the real advances to the next round. And then over here, you have rod and waders. Were waders on the list? They should be, because that keeps you dry. No one likes being wet all day. So waders advances because, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So then you have to articulate what the example is and why one of them is more important than the other, right? So the students build out these brackets. And at the end, you finally have a term, or a term that is the most important bracket or the most important term for that unit of study. And so again, it's evaluating the relative importance of 2 of these terms, or in this case, 16 of these different terms. There's endless modifications that can make this more complicated or simpler based on your class setting or your topics themselves. And so this is a pretty complicated one. And this is an example of something we did in class. We did an isms draft. And so we added like a fantasy football spin to it where they like drafted and got to choose things. And, you know, so that's a complicated version of it. But then the English department at Sentinel, they decided that they were going to incorporate it into their mythology unit. And so then they had like the mythology project incorporated Greek gods and goddesses going against each other to determine, you know, who the winners are. And you can establish whatever perimeters you want. Okay. Questions about brackets or pyramids? I'll check the chat. Pack. Pack's most important, or pack we do without? We probably do without. Vest we do without. No one words it. Got it. Okay. All right. We good? Okay. So next, we're going to go in some speed dating review. Can you guys hear that? No, we can't. I lost the screen. Are you still there? You're still there. All right. Okay. There's endless variations of speed dating. This one is just about vocab. So can we see it here? All right. There's probably lots of versions out there. This is just a modified version of a Jigsaw activity. It incorporates Frank Sinatra. Can you guys hear the music as it's playing, or is it just me? It's just me? That's way too awkward. All right, so we'll pause that. There's lots of versions out there. It's really just a big jigsaw. So this requires some background work. Students are going to come in and they're going to master one concept or one term or one vocab term. And then the other students are going to do the same thing. So everybody's going to have their own one term. You could have students double up if you want, depending on the size of your class or how many terms you're responsible for. Most of the time I use this at the end of a really big unit, but you could use it at any point in time if you would like. The basic setup is that students are going to go from one person to another. They're going to introduce themselves, give a 60-second spiel about who they are as the concept or the term itself, and some examples of what it is or what their concept is. They'll do 60 seconds, 30 seconds for questions, 60 seconds for the second person, 30 seconds for questions, and then you rotate. As people are going through, meeting more people over and over, they name the concept they meet, they give an explanation, examples, jot down a few notes. This is a subject-specific box that you would identify based on your piece or unit of study. And then they identify any compatible connections they might have to themselves as that concept. And so if it's rod and reel that meet up, what are the compatible connections? They would discuss them. I use this with an AP Human Geography with geographic theories, but you could use it with any number of different things. And then at the end of class, they have to identify who they were most compatible with. And then we find out if that person was also most compatible with the other person. And then they go in the closet for 7 minutes. No, I'm kidding. We don't do that. Not in class. That would just be totally inappropriate. But then they identify who they're most compatible with, and they provide a rationale, and then it's fun. And yes, I do play Frank Sinatra, and yes, we make the lights low, and yes, if they run out of things to say, they have to stare at each other awkwardly for as long as until time runs out. And it's all in good fun and jest. Now, that's speed dating review. There's also another version of speed dating review that's out there that calls for recall and memorization. I haven't used this one, but I found it in my drive, so I thought I'd share it with you guys as well. Okay. Speaking of pop music, that's referencing Frank Sinatra. Another easy one, and this one isn't too fancy, it's pretty easy, is taking a list or a word bank of terms from your unit of study, giving them to your students, and then having them set them to any set of pop music lyrics they have. That's all it is. There's no instructions for this because it would be like 2 sentences long, so you don't need them. Basically, give them the terms and then say, rewrite a pop song using all of these terms into it. That's all you have to do. And it's incredible what they come up with. And it's easier if they have like a catchy pop song, you know, with a repeating chorus. But that's it. That's it. It's as simple as that. And so they'll do like a Katy Perry song, and they'll set it to how a bill becomes a law. And then you just have to check off to see if they incorporated all the words in there. And it really gets in there, and the kids love it, and they have a lot of fun. And they can post it to TikTok for extra credit points. And if you don't know what TikTok is, neither do I. But apparently, it's something. That's it. That's pop music lyric activity. Ooh, all right. So those were relative to one another. Now we're getting into some comparison pieces. This is called matching trios. Matching trios is pretty fun and pretty challenging for students. It's really going to frustrate them. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking 3 different sets of terms, and then students have to match them up with one another. So for this example, you have a person, right? Or you have people over here, and then you have a specific vocabulary term over here, and then an event over here. This is an objective set, meaning each term here, like Fidel Castro, has a term here that goes with him specifically. Communism, and then the event might be Cuban Missile Crisis, right? But then as you work through it, you might get to the point where you realize communism doesn't fit with this one, right? And so you're constantly trying to get these 3 things to fit with one another. This one works really well if you organize your terms into different themes. It makes it a little bit easier. It also works well if you don't have an objective answer, which is even more fun. Because when you don't have any right or wrong answers and you just throw random words into groups of 3 because you're lazy, I'm sorry, because you're sick and your sub-plans aren't coming together as fast as possible. So you just throw them together, push them out to kids, tell them you'll give them the key when you get back. And then they just argue for an hour and a half about which of the 3 groups go. I mean, come on, what's better than that? Nothing. Why? Because the students are talking about content back and forth, debating the importance of each one of the terms and why it lines up to one another for 90 minutes. I mean, really, literally, what could be better for content mastery and critical thinking than that? I can't think of much. And so having a subjective bank is really fun. Having an objective bank is fun too. And really, you can have students create this on their own. So they can make their own matching 3 sets, right? Where they generate the list here, and then they have a key, and they provide a rationale. The rationale is always useful, especially if they're doing subjective ones. Okay, all right. That's matching trios. I know I'm going pretty quick, but we're almost there. We got 13 more minutes. Bingo. In my classroom, we do Movie Mondays, TED Talk Tuesdays, Watch Party Wednesdays, Theater Thursdays, Films on Friday, Sub-Plans on Sundays, and we use bingo cards for all of it. Yes, we watch movies 6 days a week. So a bingo card is great. How many people have watched movies or films or documentaries in their class? I know. That's all we do. We just sit there and make them watch movies all day, but that's what I'm gonna do, as you can see. Then you're like, oh, should I have like a guided set of notes? So they're furiously writing answers to questions down and they're not absorbing it. What I've done is I've taken this bingo card generator, which is free and on the internet, like everything awesome. And I just dump all of my vocab words that are featured in the film, examples of the film, into the bingo card. And then as they're watching the film, they just look out for examples of that actual term. And then they fill in the example or put an X on it. And then they shout out bingo in the middle of the movie. And then they have to get a prize or defend their rationale. And the kids argue about whether or not they deserve it. You can also do a staff meeting bingo card, which is what that is. TED Talk, bad joke, PLCs, teamwork, which my principal stole from me and didn't give me any credit last year. So we should put that on there. Okay. So that's a bingo card. That's just an easy, quick way to build your vocab into your films itself. A few last minute ones here. Quilts, colors, and dice. This, oops, sorry. This one is really hard to design. So it's a it is a vocabulary quilt. This is a PowerPoint template. And basically what this looks like, you'll cut these out, right? So you're gonna cut these out into little squares. I'm sorry, that screen might be making us all nauseous. Oh no, that's because you've been drinking vodka in the mug. That's not my fault. Okay, so you'll cut these actual squares out of the PowerPoint after you print them, and then just give them to the kids in a big pile. And then they have to match them up to each other, right? And if you have like 3 to 4 sheets of these guys, it's really, really, really hard, right? Because now the whole desk is filled. It's a puzzle. You guys understand? I feel like nobody understands. Oh, it's just 2 o'clock. So this is really hard to build. It takes a lot of time. There's a template there for you to build itself, but it's super fun. And it really requires a lot of decision making. In addition to that, you should have the kids build it themselves the first time you do it. And then the next year you can just use that instead. You can also build some dice. And I gave an example of some dice that have a series of critical thinking questions on each of them. So with the dice, you can roll the dice, it'll come up with a different question. All right, the last thing here is picture assessments. I don't have instructions for this because it's so simple. Basically, as a formative assessment, what I would do for this one is give them a blank sheet of paper and ask them to identify by drawing 25 different terms from the unit. And that's it. And what some data is showing us is that the more students actually engage in artistic sketching about content, the more likely they are to retain that content itself. And so actually like activating, you know, back at the aughts, we called it multiple intelligences, but that went out of favor, but it turns out it actually works. But actually drawing and sketching little pictures of whatever the term is really works well. And kids kind of do it on their own, and you can just say, hey, give me 25 pictures from this unit of things that are memorable for you. And that's kind of what that looks like. Okay, we're almost there. Last one, tried and true for me, is called a structured academic debate. I used to teach debate. I never debated policy despite the rapid rate of speed. Classroom debates are a lot of fun. They really are challenging to kind of get the mechanics of it right. So for this academic debate, you basically have students prepare on both sides of an issue of any one particular concept. The instructions are located here. And for the debate itself, when you walk in the room, students will be in groups of 4. So like students 1 and 2 ahead of the day before will have the same topic. And students 3 and 4 will have the same topic. So these groups of students will have different topics. Topic A, topic B. Make sense? So then when they come in, you'll pair them with one another. These two students will sit across from each other, and they will be sitting next to these two students. I thought a whiteboard would be better. So they're kind of like this, right? Wait, no. There we go. That makes sense. Okay, so they're like this. So these two have the same topic, and these two have the same topic. The goal here is for everyone to be debating on the same time. And these two, the second debate, they're going to be silent and just taking notes over the first debate. So these two students are going to debate against one another. Side A goes and they find out their topic, and then side B goes and they go back and forth as the template shows. And then the second two will go. The nice thing about this, and I've tried many different ways of classroom-based debate, but the nice thing about this is the whole debate, for both debates to happen, can happen in one 45-minute class. And this does two things. It just frees up a ton of time, but also even if you have a class of 30, well, let's just say 28 to keep numbers round. If you have 28, you'll have these little debates going on all throughout the room, 7 total debates at a time. And you as a teacher, because everybody's using the same time, you're the timekeeper, you can just walk around the room and hear different students speaking at different point of times and just kind of check in for understanding. And the thing that makes this, I think, most successful in terms of classroom-based debates is no student is in front of 28 other students being put on the spot. And so that allows introverts, extroverts, debate kids, not debate kids, everybody's on this even playing field where you don't feel that level of self-conscious because you're just talking to one of your classmates right across from you and 2 of your classmates are sitting right next to you. And so it just kind of brings some of that pressure down. And now students are just debating that topic itself. The other really nice thing about it is basically students are getting a 15-minute mini lecture from the other set of students about the other topic. So they're debating this topic and learning about it in the process. And then when they listen to the other topic, they're learning about that topic in the process. So again, it's maximizing efficiency, and it turns out really nice. Okay. When all else fails, you just take it outside and play kickball. And that's what we do 7 days a week once the springtime hits. And this fall, that's what it's going to be. We're just going straight outside and play kickball every day. Why? Because it's like if baseball players can do it, oh shoot, baseball's getting shut down, isn't it? And we think we're going to be able to open up. Give me a break. Kickball's awesome. Take 10 minutes at the beginning of class on a beautiful day. Let the kids generate as many questions about the vocab cards as possible, just on little flashcards. You got a stack of flashcards so that the students generate the questions. You put them in your pocket. You get a bullhorn from the principal. The bullhorn's key, okay? You got to have a bullhorn. Then you get out there with a kickball. Someone comes up to bat, you ask them a question. If they get the answer right, then the pitcher rolls the ball, they kick it, no headshots, no tag outs or throw outs, whatever. And then you run to the bases. You know how kickball works. If you don't, what sort of childhood did you have? And so at the end, if they get a question right, they get a strike, and you give the easy questions to the kids, and that's what kickball is. And then you play with sidewalk chalk, and it's just a nice day. Because why? You've been working your butt off with all these other things all month long. There's no movie Monday. It's film Friday. So everyone needs a break every once in a while. Speaking of break, it is 1:56. That timing was pretty good. I want to thank Blackfoot for obviously sponsoring this awesome event. I want to thank you guys. Wow, you guys were just so focused and just tuned in the whole time. It was excellent. And then obviously Daisy for organizing all this deserves our thanks. I'm going to stick around for another 10 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions, I'll check the chat box now to see what's there. We didn't get any time for planning, but there it is. Thank you guys so much. Any questions?
Ezra, I just posted it in the comments section, but is there any way you can share your like slideshow in that Google Drive folder?
Yeah, I'll double check and make sure it's there. That's no problem at all. And then
Okay, thank you.
I'll also drop it right into the chat box real quick for anybody who's still here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. I hope you guys picked up one or two things. Jenna, I stole a couple things from you along the way, so thanks for that.
Thanks, Ezra. I feel like that saved us time from talking about it later in the summer. I learned a lot.
That's good.
Thank you.
You still have to tell me everything you learned at AP training.
I know.
All right, some other day. I'll see you.
Some other day. Bye.